On Sunday, Minority Leader Boehner having referred to the bailout bill that Congress would be voting on Monday as a crap sandwich. So what makes tonight's version any less of a crap sandwich? Well, in short, there are corporate tax breaks and fewer regulations. Don't you feel better already? The Senate decided to tack on a set of corporate tax breaks to the bailout package in order to make it more attractive to House Republicans. On the Today Show this morning, House Minority Leader Blunt saying that two other changes might help garner more Republican votes. The increase in federal deposit insurance protection from $100,000 in an account to $250,000, and the relaxation of an accounting rule that was forcing financial institutions to acknowledge the losses on their mortgage assets before they could sell them. Let's turn now to Paul Krugman, professor of economics at Princeton University and an op-ed columnist at the New York Times. And once again, Dr. Krugman, thank you for your time tonight.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Well, are those new Senate provisions good or bad, and how is this bailout and or rescue, we'll use both terms, how is it compared to the last one in your assessment?
Yeah, it was, the history of this is that Secretary Paulson produced a really bad plan. Democrats took it and made it somewhat better, enough to be worth passing, though not by a lot, but it didn't pass. And now, in order to get it through, they've actually made it worse, but in ways that are sort of standard. They basically larded it up with a lot of pork. So it's a worse bill than the one that was rejected earlier this week.
There's something in there about rum dispensations, I believe, too.
Yeah. And certain wooden arrows designed for use by children. I saw that. It's a classic. That's small change, but it is kind of funny.
But it does, and also it sort of reduces this level of crisis and urgency. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? You wrote today on your blog that you'd rather see this bill pass than nothing at all. But is there a third alternative that is implied by that? Loading it up with pork, that something could be done in the short term and not make the next administration's decisions for it?
I'm feeling a little bit like I'm suffering from Stockholm syndrome here. I mean, basically, Paulson produced a really lousy plan, and we tried to fix it up a bit, and it's better, but it's still pretty bad, better than nothing, and there isn't probably a chance of getting something else together. This is a problem. Not before the election, not for some time to come. So I'm in the camp, I guess I'm part of the Hold Your Nose caucus. I'm still in favor of this, but boy, I am not happy.
You've also written this week about how, and I don't know if this isn't the first reference to the economic system of this nation being compared to this other nation, but how Iceland bailed out one of its banks in exchange for a 3/4 equity stake in it. In Sweden, the government briefly nationalized the entire banking industry in 1992. Are either of those options being discussed in this country, and will it be too late to discuss them if this current bailout passes as planned?
I think it's actually what we are going to do in the end. What's going to happen is that this thing is probably going to pass, though, heaven knows if it really will. It'll pass tonight, but whether it passes the House, I don't know. And it will be relatively ineffective, although rejecting it would actually cause a big run on the system. And then we'll come back and do it right, probably in January or in February, because in the end, partial ownership is the way to go. And that's the trouble is there's lots of economists saying that, but not very many politicians.
You suggested a big run on the system if this is not passed. I would gather that your answer to this question would be kind of small. Is there any likelihood that if we did nothing or nothing substantial at this point, everything would still somehow turn out okay?
That likelihood has shrunk. One of the things that's happened in the last couple of days while we've been dithering over this legislation is that the evidence is starting to come in that the credit crunch is really starting to hit Main Street. McDonald's is cutting off credit to some of its franchisees. We're hearing stories about people's credit limits on their credit cards and their going down and their interest rates going up. So I actually think the odds that we would get out of this unscathed if we did nothing and spent a month thinking about it are worse than I thought they were a week ago.
As quickly as that has appeared, and those stories are nationwide, how quickly would that crunch get unstuck with the passage of this?
Oh, I'm not sure the crunch would. That's the thing about this bill. It's mostly an effort to stop things from getting worse too quickly. I don't think we're going to see a wonderful. We still need a recovery strategy, and this bill is not that. This bill is trying to plug some holes in the levee before the city floods. It's not a system to actually stop the flooding entirely.
So McDonald's, we're advising them to switch the signs from billions served to dozens served. Paul Krugman of the New York Times and Princeton University
Thanks so much.
at Old Nassau tonight, as always, with our great thanks, sir.
Thanks.